Hello everybody, it's Jigglypants here, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm here in a creative test world. I'm going to be giving you guys a bit of a under the hood look at how I build and design some of my projects. And today we're going to be working on this project here, which is actually going to be my base for the next season on the Eureka SMP server. So in true Jigglypants fashion, we're going to be working on a project that I've already started on. I started on this project before I started making YouTube videos, so I don't really have any footage of me building this, but I'll just give you guys kind of a look around to see where we're at so far with the build. I'm really liking the direction. I like the almost like mangrove-y kind of roots that come in and out of the ground like this. Adds a lot of depth, a lot of interesting angles and stuff to the build. This scale, I have found the mod Axiom works very well. If you've never heard of the mod Axiom, you should definitely check it out. It's like a 3D building software almost for Minecraft. It's a very powerful mod, and it's a very interesting mod. I'm by no means an expert on it, but it is something that I've kind of fumbled my way through, and I've kind of figured out the very basics of it for my use case. So by pressing right shift, you kind of get thrown into this main screen of the mod. The controls for moving around when you're in this screen are a little bit weird. You could still use your WASD to move forwards, back, and all like that, but your mouse doesn't control where you look. So you have to hold control and left click to kind of rotate, and then you could hold control and right click to kind of move in this fashion along a plane. It takes a little bit to get used to, but once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad. Sorry, I'm kind of fumbling with the controls. I'm not very good at this mod. It's a lot to get used to. It's a lot different than normally how I build and create stuff. But for building these roots, for example, I like to use this path tool. So we're just going to set this to spruce wood again. So I like to use this path tool, and if you look at this build kind of from this angle, it looks a little goofy. It looks a little thin. You can't, not that many roots going on. This angle, I love this angle. This angle is perfect, but this angle, not so much. So we're going to try and fix that a little bit. I think we're going to try and add a root kind of coming out from this knuckle here down to about here, I believe. So to do that, I just go onto this path tool and I change it to line DDA. I don't know what that stands for, but it's the one I found that works the most. Normally, when you first start off, it's going to be set to 0, so you're going to be left with these kind of stringy, 1 block wide things. But if you change the radius just simply like that, you can get more of a beefy kind of shape. So right now it's kind of looking like a sausage, but we're going to make each one of these points have their own radius, their own width. So we're going to override the radius, and then you can change this to whatever you want. So I'm going to try and go for maybe like a gradual kind of slope here. Just going to override all the radiuses first there. So start off maybe 7. I just kind of mess around with these sizings until I get something that looks to my liking. Let's go maybe 3. Let's go maybe 2. So for width-wise, I think that's about good, but I don't necessarily like the shape. So I can actually take each one of these points and I can move them to kind of get my desired shape. Let's move this one maybe a little bit over more. maybe go up with this one a little bit more. Let's move that a little bit back. Yeah, it's a lot of just fine maneuvers and kind of working its way through. Okay, I think I'm happy with that kind of arch down. So I'm now going to hit enter and bring it actually into the world. But like for example here, it's not quite a smooth transition, and same with here. So what I like to use is this smooth tool, and I set it to a radius of about 5 here. That should be good. Maybe let's knock the strength down to maybe that should be good. And then I just kind of go along these rough edges and I just kind of smooth it out. It's kind of like model making. If you've ever in art class or you ever took any like clay work uh, classes, anything like that, it's kind of similar to that. I have not, so but that's just kind of the feel I get when I'm doing this. I can kind of like melt and move the blocks as I wish. It's very cool. It's a very different way to do organics. And I could kind of just. I think we're actually going to add maybe another root over like this here. So. And I don't know if you guys just saw that, but you can actually, at any point, if you want to add another node on, like another one of these white nodes, you could just right click and add another one. And if you click here, you can actually just remove them. You do have to be careful, like for example, if I click this one, you can see those 2 red lines that come from my mouse. If I right click, it'll put a point between those 2. So if you want to add on to the end, you just got to make sure you're clicked on to one of the end nodes here, or the end node, I guess. But let's make this maybe a little bit thicker so we get a bit of an idea of what we're working with. Ooh, that's not what we want. So it's there. Now we're going to do the same treatment with the smooth tool here. We're just going to smooth it out a little bit. You do kind of have to be careful. These tools will affect the background behind what you're working on. So if I kind of, I don't know if I could show it here, but I have had in the past, like if I'm trying to smooth out like this, for example, it will sometimes smooth out the ground back here. Or if I'm using, like for example, the melt tool, I'll melt right through the world. So you just got to be mindful of that. I guess if I was to select the tree as like an object, I wouldn't have that issue. But yeah, you just got to be mindful of that. And it also affects the ground here. So maybe I don't like that as much. So I'm pretty happy with this new added root here. Kind of adds a little bit to this angle, give it a little bit more width and a little more interesting on the eye with this forking and like this. And I think next we're going to move on to this root here. I don't really like how it hugs the terrain like that, and how it's got that weird funny hook right at the end. I want something that more naturally follows this curve we got going on with the root. So the little power of editing and a neat history feature here on the Axiom mod, I've actually already built this. So if we just jump forward in the timeline, we can bring the new root structure into existence here. And I think this adds a lot to the front facing view, and also these side angles with this kind of three forked root with this more base one in the background there. So now that we have all of these roots put in, I think this is a good spot to end with the actual construction of the tree stump, like the actual structure of it. And we're going to move on to maybe some finer detail work with some of the terrain and maybe even the wood of the tree stump here. So we're going to go over into this magical select tool, and we're going to make sure we're on the block select, and we're going to select all of this moss, and then we're going to replace the moss with just normal stone here, just like that. We're going to get it all to stone, and then we're going to go back into the magical select tool, and we're going to select that same stone again, and we're going to go over to this contaminator tool. I believe that's how that's said. And you want to be on farmland, or at least I want to be on farmland. You can try out some of the other stuff if you want, but for what I want to do, I want to be in farmland. So then I'm just going to paint over top, and I'm going to make sure I get everything even here on the back. Yep. So if you see here, the sections of the cliffs where there is a high vertical difference, it'll leave as stone, and it'll just change the top blocks. So you get that kind of cliff effect. Here, because this is mostly flat and gentle rolling terrain, maybe a little bit here, you don't really see that effect much. But if you were to do something like spiky, jagged cliffs, you'd be able to see this a lot better. So now we're going to change all of this farmland here into whatever we want our top ground block to be. So we're going to go back into the magical select tool, and we're going to select this, and we're going to do replace, and we're going to replace all of the farmland with, let's just start off with moss. So now you can see on the cliffs here, you get kind of the stone to dirt to moss. You kind of get like that natural looking land texture where it goes between the three blocks. It's a neat little trick. It took me quite some time to figure that out, but I like the effect it gives. It gives a very natural look for very low effort. So the moss looks good, but for what I'm picturing for this build, I'm thinking more of like an alien planet forest, maybe like Avatar or something like that. So I want for more of a bluish ground, but I don't want it just to be one solid block. I want a little bit of a texture put into it. So once again, we're going to go over into the magical select tool, and we're going to select all of the moss on the top layer there. And then we're going to go into this noise painter, and we're going to select some blocks here. So I'm thinking like a bluish, so maybe some nylium here, but I'm not sure about that edge texture with the red, so we're just going to test that out, and we're going to see. And then maybe to do warped wart blocks. What else can we throw in here? Maybe, yeah, some moss. Get some green in there. I think that might look good. So now that we've selected our three blocks we want to paint into here, we can kind of get a preview of the noise pattern that we're gonna get. You can randomize the seed as much as you want, but for me it doesn't really matter. I'm not too picky about that, but I do want it to be less splotchy. I want maybe a little bit more noise, so I'm going to change this octave up here, and it's going to give me a more splotchy effect. And then we're just going to make the radius of this tool a little bit bigger, and now we're just going to paint this onto the surface. Again, making sure that we get all of it in the back here. Okay. It is something. It is some kind of texture on there. It's giving more swampy kind of vibes with this the dark red there on the edge of the nylium. Not really a fan of that, so we're gonna go back to this effect here, and I wish this was the regular creative menu so I could sort by colors, but you can't ask for everything. This mod already offers a whole lot, so I can't be too picky. What if, instead of moss, we add one of these concrete powders? Maybe this lime concrete powder. And then, for another cyany kind of blue, let's do blue wool. Okay, let's see how this looks. Again, that's something. Maybe I was off a bit with the lime. You guys are probably screaming at me, why are you picking lime? Let's maybe do a little bit of a darker green then. Maybe lime terracotta. That could be something. I think we might have a winner here. Just from what I'm seeing already. I do like this color combo. Might be a little unorthodox, but yeah, I think I like that. Obviously we're gonna have to change the color of the mushroom because it's a little repetitive here with the colors. So let's just do that real quick. So there we go. We changed that from cyan into red, just so get a little contrast going. That might not be the final color of it, but for now, I think that's good enough. So now that we have this nice noise pattern texturing for the terrain down here at the bottom, I'm going to move on to the coloring and texturing of the actual root here itself. So I want to do something a little bit different with this. I want to have a noise pattern run throughout the entire thing, but I also want to have some other blocks in that noise pattern do a gradient throughout. So to achieve this effect, we're going to go into this magical select tool, make sure we're on the block select, and we're going to select all of these spruce logs, like that. So for my two blocks, I've selected muddy mangrove roots and soul soil. So now that I've selected what blocks I want my gradient to be, to actually apply this, I'm going to go inside the middle of my build, or it doesn't have to be the exact middle, but as close as I can get to the middle, and just kind of click here into the void, and then I'm going to go upwards, and I'm going to right click and hold at the top of my build. So now I can just kind of go around and I can paint all of the spruce logs here, hopefully getting all of them. So that's the effect I get here. It's a very straight line across where it changes, but I think that's okay. I was hoping for the soul soil to be down a little bit more, but I think it's proportional to the amount of blocks there are, is how it kind of determines where to draw the line. So I guess this is okay for now. And we're going to go again here into the magical select tool now, and we're going to make sure we select both of these. And we're going to go into the noise painter, here I have mangrove wood, uh, brown terracotta, and stripped dark oak. And then if you notice here, these kind of darker patches in this noise pattern is blocks that are not going to change, that are going to stay the original. So those are going to be our muddy mangrove roots and our soul soil. So if I just up the size of this a little bit more, and then we just paint over this again, then just like that, we get this cool effect where if we zoom in a little bit more, we have brown terracotta, mangrove roots, dark oak, stripped dark oak with the muddy mangrove roots kind of blended in there. And then when we get up to the top here, it changes to the same mangrove, brown terracotta, dark oak, and then soul soil to kind of give us that highlight up at the top with the darker bottom here. And with that, I think it's a good spot to end this episode here. Got a lot done. We kind of fixed up the awkward goofiness of this angle by adding a couple extra roots or the front here. We fixed up this weird wonky root we had before by adding in this much larger one. Added some color and texture to the ground and also the tree stump. And very happy with the progress on this so far. But my recommendation is definitely go check out the mod Axiom. And I'd love to hear comments of stuff that you've built or maybe some ideas for me to try and build in the future. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.